Although the Biden administration now has only 2 months left in its term, they are still making every effort to suppress China's industry in various unreasonable ways. A few days ago, the United States announced a new semiconductor export control measure, adding 136 Chinese companies and institutions to the restricted list. At the same time, the United States has further tightened the restrictions on the export of 24 types of semiconductor manufacturing equipment, 3 software tools, and HBM chips, and even interfered with the normal trade between China and other countries. Interestingly, the day after the United States announced this new regulation on Chinese semiconductors, the Chinese Ministry of Commerce immediately announced countermeasures. China has made it clear that it prohibits the export of some key dual-use items to the United States, including important materials such as gallium, germanium, and antimony, as well as superhard materials and graphite-related items. At the same time, China also warned that any country, region, organization, or individual who violates relevant regulations may be terminated from all cooperation. This is actually equivalent to telling the world not to resell these rare materials to the United States. This series of actions undoubtedly hit the pain point of the United States. So the question is, why does the United States repeatedly ban Chinese semiconductor companies? And how much impact will China's ban have on the United States? If you like our video content, please click to subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you can receive all our latest video content. Now, let's get into today's topic. We all know that the semiconductor industry is hailed as the representative of new quality productivity. For example, the rapid development of intelligent manufacturing, unmanned driving, and smart cities cannot be separated from the support of semiconductors. But in this field, the United States has always been the absolute leader in the world. According to Gartner data, in 2019, American companies accounted for 54% of the global chip market, while mainland China's market share was only 4%. In the 2020 Global Semiconductor Supplier Revenue Rankings, 7 of the top 10 are American companies, which together account for 33.2% of the market share. In addition, the United States has also laid out and dominated the global semiconductor industry chain through cooperation with allied countries, further consolidating its dominant position. However, since 2018, the United States has begun to launch a long-term crackdown on China's chip industry, trying to curb China's development in this key field. Unexpectedly, China's chip manufacturing industry has not been knocked down as predicted by the West. Data shows that in 2023, China will account for 75% of the financing of global semiconductor startups, while the United States will only account for 11%. The Semiconductor Industry Association recently predicted that by 2024, mainland China will have 44 wafer fabs, with a monthly chip production capacity of 4.3 billion pieces, accounting for 30% of the global market. This figure can be said to be a cliff-like lead. You know, China used to need to import trillions of chips every year, but now it has begun to gradually achieve independent supply. So far, China has been the world's largest semiconductor market for many years, accounting for nearly 1/3 of the global market share. In the first 3 quarters of this year, China's domestic semiconductor sales reached $135.8 billion, accounting for nearly 30% of the global share. Moreover, China is also continuing to increase its chip production capacity expansion. According to data from the General Administration of Customs of China, from January to July this year, Chinese companies invested heavily in the import of chip manufacturing equipment, with a total of nearly $26 billion. At the same time, mainland China is expected to become the region with the largest investment in building new chip factories in the world, with total annual expenditures, including equipment procurement, expected to reach $50 billion. However, unfortunately, the rapid rise of China's semiconductor industry has attracted the attention of the United States. In order to contain China, The United States has also joined forces with allies such as the Netherlands, South Korea, and Japan to ban the export of key manufacturing equipment to China. Recently, as the Biden administration is about to end its term, the United States has issued a series of new sanctions. What is going on? On December 2nd of this year, the Bureau of Industry and Security of the U.S. Department of Commerce announced new rules for export control measures on Chinese semiconductors. 140 companies related to Chinese semiconductors were added to the entity list, including 136 Chinese companies and 4 overseas affiliates, involving more than 100 semiconductor equipment and tool manufacturers. It can be said that this is the largest and most influential U.S. chip sanctions against China in history. Moreover, the restrictions of the new regulations are quite comprehensive, focusing on advanced semiconductor technology. From the 24 types of manufacturing equipment required for the production of advanced integrated circuits, to 3 key software tools, to high-bandwidth memory, the core component of AI chips, all are included in the control without exception. In addition, the United States has also restricted Singapore, Malaysia, South Korea, and other countries from exporting chip manufacturing equipment to China. Most of these new rules will be implemented directly from that day, while some measures involving compliance adjustments will be extended to the end of December at the latest. But it is worth noting that this time the United States did not use the guise of economic threat theory or maintaining national security as in the past to make excuses for its sanctions. The U.S. Department of Commerce directly pointed out in the relevant documents that the purpose of this sanction is to weaken China's ability to produce advanced process semiconductors and try to slow down China's development in the field of advanced artificial intelligence. Faced with such unreasonable sanctions, China also responded within 24 hours. As far as I know, the Chinese Ministry of Commerce has already responded. Due to the abuse of control measures by the United States, the normal economic and trade exchanges between countries have been seriously hindered, and market rules and international economic and trade order have been undermined. In response to this situation, they decided to strengthen the export control of relevant dual-use items to the United States from now on. One is, any dual-use items will be prohibited from being exported to military users in the United States or for military purposes. At the same time, in principle, no export license will be granted for dual-use items related to gallium, germanium, antimony, and superhard materials. In addition, China has also implemented stricter end-user and end-use reviews on the export of dual-use graphite items. It should be noted that although China has previously announced export controls on germanium, gallium, antimony, and superhard materials, the situation this time is significantly different. The measures at that time were not targeted at specific countries or regions, and export licenses could still be obtained as long as they met the relevant regulations. However, this time the export control is more clear. It directly prohibits the export of these key materials to the United States and further restricts the possibility of other countries and regions transferring these items to the United States. So, what impact will this have on the United States? Anyone familiar with the semiconductor manufacturing process knows that the importance of gallium, germanium, antimony, and graphite is almost irreplaceable. For example, these metals are essential core raw materials for military equipment such as high-precision missiles, high-end radar systems, and night vision equipment. Without them, these equipment cannot be produced. But did you know that China almost dominates the world in the supply of these rare metals? Data shows that China's gallium reserves account for more than half of the world's total reserves, about 190,000 tons, accounting for 68% of the world's total reserves, and its production accounts for more than 90% of the world. The situation is similar for germanium, with China's reserves accounting for 41% of the world's total and its production accounting for 70% of the world's total. As for antimony, China's reserves account for 48% of the world's total, and it is also the world's largest antimony producer. In 2022, the United States imported 63% of these rare metals from China. This set of data clearly shows that China has its own chips in the supply chain of these rare metals. These rare metals that China now prohibits from export almost cover the key U.S. defense military industry. Since April 2023, Lockheed Martin has been unable to deliver an F-35 fighter to the military or foreign customers for 19 consecutive months due to China's interruption of gallium and germanium supply. Although Lockheed Martin can barely maintain the F-35 production line at present, the situation will undoubtedly become more difficult if the supply cut continues. Of course, the 6 major U.S. military giants such as Boeing and Raytheon will also be fully impacted by China's supply restrictions on rare earths, key raw materials, and supporting parts. This comprehensive blockade will directly hit the foundation of the U.S. military industry and face unprecedented challenges. As for graphite, it is a key raw material for refining metal materials and an indispensable and important resource in the field of new energy. China also has an advantage in natural graphite reserves, with a total reserve of about 81 million tons, accounting for a quarter of the world's total reserves. In terms of production, China's production in 2023 was as high as 950,000 tons, accounting for 77% of the world's total production. Surprisingly, the purity of natural graphite is not high and is usually mixed with a large amount of impurities. The purification technology level of other countries can generally only increase the purity to about 95%. However, for fields such as semiconductor manufacturing and aerospace equipment that require extremely high precision, 95% purity is far from enough. China is currently the only country in the world that can increase the purity of graphite to more than 99.99995%, a purity that has almost reached the limit of technology. This ultra-high purity graphite refining ability makes China's position in the graphite field almost irreplaceable. This also means that in the field of graphite, the United States is also facing the dilemma of total blockade. In fact, the United States has long established a routine practice of controlling imports and exports of Chinese semiconductors and usually conducts a review every October. For example, in October 2022 and 2023, the United States introduced export control measures against China's semiconductor industry. The new regulations announced on December 2nd are actually based on further revisions to previous control regulations. From my observation, compared with the previous 2 times, although a large number of companies have been added to the entity list and the scope of this new regulation is wider, there is no substantial upgrade in the intensity of import and export controls on the entire Chinese semiconductor industry. The reason is that in recent years, China's semiconductor industry has been laying out around the autonomy and control of the supply chain, gradually reducing its dependence on overseas markets. At present, 90% of the revenue of most Chinese semiconductor companies comes from the domestic market, and the proportion of overseas markets is less than 10%. Therefore, it is expected that the overall impact of the new regulations on China's semiconductor industry will be very limited. To not miss out on our future projects and news updates, please make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. We will continue to provide you with more exciting and interesting content.